God damn! God damn, that was bad! That shit was ass, bro! Oh.
Anyway, hi chat. How we doing? How we doing on this fine Thursday evening for me? Let me check my audio level first and foremost.
That shit was ass, bro!
Goddamn right it was, past Oddteeth. Anyway, hi chat, hello, welcome to the stream. Hello to Transorbital and something back in the chat. Here, as per the norm, you love to see it. Absolutely love it. So, no, sir, it was very good.
It was not. Stop lying to me. I will kick your ass if you say it was good music. That shit reeks. To put it bluntly. Absolute garbo. So, hi chat. Welcome to the stream. I'm currently looking through my old Deltarune folder on my phone for some stuff regarding today's stream topic. So, it is Peakness. I'm doing math homework. Hell yeah, best of luck on maths on the homework, I will say, because if there's anything to go by from the previous few streams that I've mentioned, I am shit at math, so anyone that's better at math than me immediately gets my respect. But yes, hi, I'm no longer real skeleton. I am funny odd man. But yeah. So, today's stream chat, like I was saying, is very different for me in terms of what we're actually going to be yapping about. We're not going to be drawing, we're not going to be doing any gaming, anything of the sort. We're just going to be talking about Soulfountain. And this is something that I've wanted to do for a while. The description of this stream, I will read it aloud right now, if I can get it up. Just give me a second. I've been wanting to do this for a good while now. Today I'll be yapping about the complete history of my solo music endeavours, Soulfountain. This will range from when I first started considering the idea of recording music, the Deltarune AU era, at least the first one, and overall all the stuff that was happening in my life to influence my many EPs, albums, and overall music style. So, speaking of the description, my current Soulfountain shit, the stuff that's actually good, is down in the description, as well as the Discord and my webcomic. But the Discord and the webcomic, well, the Discord, yeah, we can plug that. Webcomic, not so much tonight. But the Soulfountain stuff, that's relevant. I don't know what I was gonna go there. So, I think I'm gonna start just by talking about like the earliest thing I can remember doing before starting Soulfountain, like still in the process of coming up with it kind of shit. Because before Deltarune, like the whole Deltarune AU shit, it was actually just going to be a thing that I wanted to do regardless of Deltarune or not. And one of the things that I can remember, like prehistoric before Soulfountain stuff, was the name. It was going to be called Fire Scythe. And I don't think I have the image anywhere anymore, but it was literally just a black background with a scythe in the middle of it, with fire underneath, like really poorly edited PNGs, on a black background, with the word Fire Scythe, all one word for the record, above it in like 8-bit looking text. And as cool as the name Fire Scythe was, I'm glad I didn't use it. I'm kind of glad I changed my mind on that. So, yeah. I will also preface this as well to the people that's currently in the chat. If you have any questions regarding, like, Soulfountain stuff, by all means, edgy as fuck, classic, goddamn right. Yeah, goddamn right, it's edgy as fuck, something back. But, any questions regarding Soulfountain at all, or just, like, anything that can help spark my memory will be very much appreciated today, because I am talking about, like, 5 years ago now. Maybe 6, like early 2020, late 2019-ish time. So, yeah, it's a very, very long while ago by my standards. And my memory being as shit as it is, I'll be surprised if I remember a lot of stuff that I do. But, is it a fountain that releases souls or a fountain made of souls? I don't know. Maybe it's both. At least it's not a tornado of souls. Megadeth reference.
I don't listen to Megadeth, can you tell?
But yeah. So, the earliest memory I can remember, because that's what we do with memories, is, the fire scythe thing. And I think I was actually going to use it, but then I kind of thought, this sounds shit, so I sat on the name for a bit. And this leads into the question that Big Lad Melton +1 has just mentioned. Also, hi Inquisitor, Oddteeth, I remember your story of Soulfountain. You do? You remember it better than me? What the hell, man? The frick? But, yeah. So, Big Lad Melton +1 brings up a good point. Is Fire Scythe its Dark World form? Oh god. Yeah, probably. So, why Soulfountain? Why those two words? This is where Deltarune kinda comes into play a little bit. So, back in the olden days of early 2020, before we were plunged into lockdown from COVID, I was properly, like, getting into / in the middle of a dark fountain. So, Deltarune phase. Yeah, Soulfountain was named after a Deltarune AU I was making. Guizito just mentioned it in the chat there. And, yeah, it kind of just started as, like, a little AU post kind of thing, just as like a little pic collage image thing of like a giant wall of text with PNGs of Chris, Ralsei, and Susie at the time. Susie was like the guitarist, Chris was the drummer, and Ralsei was the pianist for some reason. Even though Chris is the one that plays piano, I don't fucking know, man. I didn't pay attention to the game, I'll be honest. I was just getting into Deltarune, I believe, at the time. And, in the AU as well, Asriel had come home from college, so it was probably going to be, like, set after Deltarune. And Asriel had come home from college, and he was the bassist of the band. He was represented at the time on that post as just a PNG of a bass guitar. I think it was like a J-style bass or some shit, or like a precision bass. Let me get up Tommen to see if I can find which one it was. But, yeah, Asriel was the bassist, and the key, like the rock for that AU, pardon my my musical pun there, didn't even mean to do that, like, the foundation for that AU was, Asriel being there and wanting to start a band. So, yeah, you gave Chris literally the only instrument out of the 3 that they did not play. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, God, yeah, listen, I was like, what if Des was the singer, though? I'm fairly certain Asriel was the vocalist. And I'm fairly certain throughout all, like, Deltarune, Soulfountain, AU iterations, it was always going to be Asriel. So, I don't even think at the time I knew what a Des was. I don't think any of us knew what a Des was. So, it was like Chapter 1 era Deltarune that we're talking about here. So, long before Chapter 2. But, yeah, I remember Asriel being the focal point for it. Basically being like, hey, Chris, Susie, and this other little guy that looks like me and does funny haha magic shit. Do you want to join a band or, like, start a band or some shit? And that was essentially the whole, like, catalyst for the AU. It's just a band AU, basically. Look, Chris plays guitar in Chapter 3. Yeah, they play guitar. They also hit you with it, I'm fairly certain. I believe I've also found the bass that Asriel was represented by, so let me snipping tool this image and show it on stream. It's a Harley Benton one. Good old Harley Benton. Harley Benton bass guitar. HP bass. There we go. But yeah, so Asriel was the one that started the band. Chris on drums, Susie on guitar, and Ralsei on piano. And then later on, like, to when it became more Deltarune focused, Noel took up Ralsei's position and essentially filled in on lead guitar. So I swapped out Ralsei playing piano for Noel on lead guitar because that's when I'd started properly writing, or like listening, not writing, to some Metallica stuff. I don't think Des was even mentioned by anyone important before Chapter 3. Other than Noel, probably. Where Tenor just name drops her for no goddamn reason, so Noel isn't important. Yeah. But, yeah, so this is the bass that I represented Asriel with on the original, like, little forum thing. So you're gonna tell us your journey through your music path? Yeah, pretty much. Journey by Soulfountain joke here. Very cool. Hell yeah. But yeah, so it was just like a bog standard J-style bass that I represented the guy with. And yeah, so later on I swapped out Ralsei for Noel in the AU. And this is around the time, I think now, when I had actually started writing for Soulfountain, base.png, hell yeah. So I have a few drawings that I did at the time, back in like 2020-ish, 2021-ish time, that I thought looked pretty decent and kind of illustrated what I was going for with the AU thing. So let me save these actually to my PC. I forgot to do this before the stream. Fucking idiot over here. Not getting his, thingy stuff set up before the stream. You know me, chat. I'm absolutely abhorrent with getting shit done on time. Yeah, it literally is. I think it's a Fender-style one, judging by the, Fender name on the headstock. But, yeah, it's that similar kind of body style, you know? Asriel and Des's appearances. Just get Asriel Battle Sprite, put base PNG on his heads, and let the goat cook. Yeah. Asriel and Des's appearance are shown, and they're just a guitar and bass with legs. Yeah. That would be funny as shit. But yeah, I'll get up the two images that I can remember fondly from the old fountain kind of stuff. And then I bring up this one. This one, the one on the right that you're about to see, is probably my most favorite out of all the ones that I ever did for OG Fountain. OG Soulfountain. So let me bring those up now. So these are, sorry Skeletonia, or whatever your name was, just gonna cover you up there, pal. These are a few, just like two little drawings I did at the time, kind of leaning into like the band AU thing. So you can see on the image on the left, they have the souls representing like the colors of each member, which will be appearing again in some way later on, when we actually get around to listening to some of the old shit, because we're going to be doing that as well, chat. Going to be listening to some of the old shit, all the way up to the current Soulfountains. But, yeah. The one on the left, I'm fairly certain, was my first ever drawing for the AU. And then the one on the right, where Azriel, Chris, and Susie are in like a studio recording stuff, that one's my most favourite out of all of the ones that I did. I loved it to a point where I redrew it earlier on this year. There was a video on my channel. I think it's actually like the last speed drawing video I did before I dropped them all together, because I'm gonna be real, those speed drawing videos, as cool as they were, kinda just, I got bored of making them, and they were a hassle to fucking edit on my phone. So a little context as to why they're not on the channel anymore. Do I wish to delete Hazzy Jam? Yes. But yeah, so this became essentially like the go-to image for me for my AU. And to kind of go back on a point, because I actually realize now I didn't properly mention or answer it, but another reason why I called it Soulfountain, you seal dark fountains with souls. I nearly said you seal souls with dark fountains. Whoops. Some Deltarune fan I am. But, yeah. So, around that time, while I was drawing stuff, I think some of those images were made in 2021, especially, like, the studio-based one. But around the time of the first image that I drew, I actually did start recording music. So, Azriel looks like a stoner bum in every college campus ever. Only got accepted with dad's money. Yeah, pretty much. I feel like stoner Azriel is, honest to God, one of my favourite headcanon things that's come out the fandom as of recently, to a point where I'm slowly adopting it. But yeah. Posting r/Undertale, like some old art stuff I did for my music channel. I'm fairly certain I did in r/Deltarune years and years ago. I don't remember if I did or not properly, but I'm fairly certain some of that art is somewhere. I just don't remember where. So, like I said, after I had drawn at least one of those images, this thing came into being. Soulfountain, The Fields of Darkness. You've already heard one of the songs at the beginning of the stream, and that was actually the title track, The Fields of Darkness. And because it was a Deltarune AU at the time, Fields of Darkness obviously being about Chapter 1. So, or at least like a rough approximation of it. So lyrically, it was about something Deltarune related. Looking back at it now, not really. But also, on top of it kind of being Deltarune related, take a shot every time I say Deltarune in this stream, by the way. You'll be on the floor. It also just kind of gave me an excuse to try writing music properly. So, I think I'm going to show off one more track from The Fields of Darkness. It's an instrumental, and it's called Thrashier, because all the songs on The Fields of Darkness, you've got Ambassadors, The Fields of Darkness, What You Deserve, which we will be coming back to, again, later on in the stream, Thrash, and Thrashier. Apparently Thrashier is a word. So, yeah. I'm gonna stop yapping for a bit. I'm gonna let this song play out, so you can hear in all of the absolute travesty that is my old style, my old unrecognizable Oddteethisms and shit. Basically, the first thing that I made when I picked up a guitar without any prior knowledge of how to play it, aside from just jamming along to Metallica tracks. So here is Thrashia off the Fields of Darkness EP. I'm sorry in advance. I will be honest, it's not the worst example I could have given from that EP, but it's still pretty fucking bad by my current standards, so, yeah. So, that was one of the, I think even the last songs I recorded for not Thrashia, that's the name of the track, for the Fields of Darkness, out of the 5 that I did. And I mentioned in the description for the Fields of Darkness that I had done an Enter Sandman cover, but again, I state, my guitar playing skills at the time were god-awful, so it sounded nothing like it should have done. I like it, it got a nice vibe. I kind of somewhat agree. Looking back at some of the things that I used to record, there'll be a few tracks, especially as we move forward throughout like the different EPs and albums, that I still kind of like and occasionally listen to, but not as much as like, say, like my newer stuff. But it's at least good that somebody can get enjoyment out of it. So something back. I mean nothing bad when I say this. I mean no malice whatsoever. Raise your fucking standards, buddy. Say as a joke. I don't mean that. But yeah, I'm glad you at least enjoy it. So, or at least like it. So, yeah. The Deltarune AU thing, I think, around the time as well of 2021, especially. And I'm going to bring it up now because I don't actually have the videos for them anymore. But the 2021 era for Soulfountain is when I started moving into, like, trackpadding shit. But before that, for 1 year of Soulfountain, on the 30th of May 2021, because I'm tone deaf as hell, I just clap whenever I hear anything made by anyone. That's fair enough. That's valid. But the 1 year anniversary was celebrated by me in the Epic crossover server, which I mentioned a while ago in another stream. I think it was the 6-hour one. Shoutouts to anyone that can remember the original Epic crossover Discord server. That's where I got my start, like, sharing around my music, basically saying, hey guys, how does this sound? I was really nervous, obviously, at the time. Never shared anything like it before, and I didn't know if people were going to enjoy it, because it sounded like Dookie. And people did. People liked it. They were not uploaded to YouTube initially. They were compressed videos, like one of those shitty video, like, compressor applications you can get that lets you send shit by Discord, but it absolutely tanks the quality of the sound and video. Like, oh god, I have nostalgia for that kind of thing now. Fuck. But, yeah, around the first anniversary, I did a thing called Soulfountain Symphony, which was basically, I took songs that I had already recorded them again, and put orchestra to them. Or at least string sections, because I didn't have any brass or anything on GarageBand that I thought sounded nice. So, again, it was a thing 4 years ago now, holy shit. And pardon me, I've got Pepsi. Well, I had Pepsi with me, I don't anymore. But it was a thing that I celebrated 4 years ago, which is now actually lost media. And the first Soulfountain Symphony was literally just to celebrate 1 year of Soulfountain. That's it. There was a second Soulfountain Symphony, but I'll get into that when we get more closer to when I actually made that. Because we gotta go back from 2021 to 2020 for the second EP that I did for Soulfountain, which is, if I'll get it up. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. I don't know why I'm singing. I'm singing that of all things. The next EP that I made after the Fields of Darkness was only 2 months, or 2.5 months after I finished production on TFOD, as I effectively refer to it as, and that EP was Soulfountain Freedom. Now, there is a name of a song in this EP that has kind of actually survived me as a whole. So basically what I mean by that is I liked the song enough back during the day when I first initially recorded it, and I liked it enough to a point where I thought, you know what, this is worthy enough to put on some of the new shit. And the first track, Calm Before the Storm, open bracket, stability, close bracket, or parenthesis, whichever one you use, is also the first track on Dreams from a Dark Fantasy. So, something's kind of persisted over the years. But yeah, so the Freedom EP was 2 months, roughly, after Fields of Darkness, and was essentially kind of just a follow-up. It wasn't really anything groundbreaking or new, or anything that was worthwhile compared to the other songs. But I think within that 2-month time period, I had actually somewhat improved with song structuring a little bit. Emphasis on a little bit. It's not by much. And before we get into anything like listening to tunes or anything else, I'm going to point out the souls in the background and the fountain. This is when I properly lent kind of into the Deltarune stuff. And yeah, it's not subtle, is it? So you've got the purple/pinkish soul on the left for Susie, the soul behind Freedom, Bad Choices, and Twisted for Chris, and then at the time, because I'm fairly certain this was while Ralsei was still a part of the headcanon, the green soul for Ralsei. Completely disregarding the knowledge that monster souls are white, and I don't think darkness have souls at all. So, yeah. Complete disregard for any consistency with my Deltarune fixation. I know, right? But you got the Dark Fountain in the back as well. I'm fairly certain I drew this on Photoshop back when I first got it. Back when it was usable and stable and not riddled up to its fucking chin with shitty AI stuff. But yeah, I properly started leaning into like the Deltarune and stuff in terms of aesthetics for the cover art. Song-wise, not so much. Not so much lyrically or anything of the sort. It was still very much me doing my own thing, and the Deltarune look was just kind of what stuck around. And, yeah. Man, you should have made Susie's and Ralsei's upside down. It would have looked like the Deltarune. Yeah, I didn't have that kind of foresight back then. Had I paid attention to anything in Deltarune and not fixated over just like, oh, look, funny Mercedes-Benz, you know? I probably would have done that. But me being me, I didn't do that. So, another thing as well I want to bring up is like the equipment and stuff that I used at the time. So, the amplifier and guitar that I used, and this can technically count as the equipment used for quite a lot of this old Soulfountain shit. So consider this its own little segment. But the guitar I used is my beloved and ever faithful Cruiser RG600. I'll get a picture of that now to show you. I've still got it to this day. I'm probably never going to get rid of it. I've mentioned that on countless equipment videos that I've done on my current Soulfountain channel. And it's just been my main axe pretty much since day one. And had I not bought that, I probably would never have done any of this. So I can blame this guitar that I'm about to show off in a sec. So there's my RG600. That's the guitar that I'd used. I'm gonna actually send away the Freedom EP cover for the time being. So that's the guitar that I use and still use to this day. It's back in its original quote-unquote condition. The pickups are Epiphone ones now. And again, I know I've recently released an equipment video on my main Soulfountain channel, which, down in the description, once again, you're going to hear that a lot this stream. But, the pickups in it at the time, I think, were just bog standard stock ones compared to the Epiphones that I have in now. And the amplifier that I used was a custom KLA-10 lead amplifier. It's a little practice amp, which, on the box for when they initially released, claims that it's a practice amp that sounds like a stack. So, basically what that means is, it sounds like those big stacked speaker amplifiers that you see at, like, concerts behind all the musicians next to the drum kit and shit. It basically claimed that it sounded like that. And if my old Soulfountain music is anything to go by, it's essentially proof that no, it never did sound like a stack. The fuck do you mean? So I'll get a picture up of the KLA-10 amp as well. I got this image from eBay just now, so I'll apologize in advance for my shitty resourcefulness. Oh no, Bonnie the Bunny guitar, hell yeah. That's the amp that I used. It looks quite big there on that image. It doesn't really do justice to how big the actual amplifier was. It is no bigger than, say, like an A4 piece of paper. In terms of width, it's probably like 1.5 A4 pieces of paper. Did you get scammed by Fazbear Entertainment? Honestly, no. 42 quid for the guitar was actually quite a decent price, especially given what I've seen it go for since. I've seen it go upwards for like £200 on eBay, and I got mine for 42 quid at an antique centre. And while I'm on the topic of my equipment that I used at the time of recording the Freedom EP and Filtered Darkness, basically a lot of the early 2020 Soulfountain stuff was recorded with just these two images that you see on screen. They were recorded with the JPEGs themselves. The RG600 and the KLA-10 amp. That was essentially my rig for that whole first year, essentially, before I ended up getting another guitar, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So, one of the other images I drew, going back into the Deltarune shit, was an image of Susie basically saying, "Hey Chris, I need that fucking guitar, man. Like, give me that shit, dude. What the hell?" And it's a very stupid image. It's very dumb, simple, and to the point. And this is it. She looks so skinny. But yeah, it was a very like, I wonder why he's made that image. Also, why Susie hand like ball on the right hand, but other like made of sausages. I don't know. I didn't have a consistent art style back in the day, so yeah, it wasn't particularly the best. But yeah, my RG600 I love very dearly. My KLA-10 amplifier I don't actually have anymore. I moved that on long ago, and I'm debating on getting one back because they're not expensive at all on the aftermarket. They're like £20 to like £30 at maximum. So I got mine, I think, for like 5 quid. But like the two that I had, because I had my initial one back in 2020. And then I got rid of that one. And then I bought another one, exact same model amplifier, from the same shop. It was not the same amp, for the record. It wasn't the one that I gave away. It was actually a different one, because the original one I had, the gain knob didn't work properly. It was either no gain or full gain. There was no in between, so I couldn't like get a nice rounded middle kind of sound. So yeah, it was definitely either crank it up to max or you're not writing metal, in quotations, metal there. So yeah, your Susie impression sounds like Mercedes-Benz got a sore throat. God, fuck, you're right, Chris. Also, Susie design very cool. Thank you. It's literally just Susie, but take off the jacket and, you know, put the dark-willed, spiked arm bracelets on. But yeah, so that was basically the equipment that I used on the Fields of Darkness and Freedom EPs. And I'm fairly certain up to a point after the next two EPs after Freedom. But while we're on the topic of Freedom, I'm gonna shut up and play a track from this one now. And it's gonna be another instrumental, methinks, because I don't want to torture anyone with my old vocal style. So the track I'm gonna play is called Twisted. And it's not the Dimebag Darrell song. I mentioned that in another stream, just as a joke, but I'm mentioning it for real here. I didn't even know who Dimebag Darrell was 4 years ago, so Roaring Pros, Susie Darkwell Spikes, cons, the apocalypse. But yeah, I think this is probably the second shortest, if not the shortest track on the album. Let me have a look. I do believe it is actually the second shortest, beating out Bad Choices by a whole second. So this is Twisted, and it's an improvement, I'll say that much. Not much of an improvement, but it's getting there. It's getting somewhere, so here's that. yeah, definitely a tiny bit better than the Fields of Darkness in terms of sound, I would say. Because the tone on Freedom, it was essentially my previous GarageBand settings from the Fields of Darkness EP. And I wanted to kind of get a bit more of like a wavy sound, you know? And I was messing around with some of the different like effect sounds. And then I stumbled across I believe it's actually called Wavy preset on the fun stuff, the fun category for GarageBand. Let me have a look now. While I've got my phone, Gromit, I might as well give it a gander. Oh, it's called Dreamy. That's what it was called. So it was essentially, because the way I recorded back in the day was guitar loops. So I recorded the riff in, had it loop, and I essentially copy-pasted to get like a bit more of like a low-end kind of chunkiness on one of the tracks, and then the other one, a prime example, higher end stuff, would be on Freedom. So like that kind of chorus sound that it has was on the Dreamy Audio preset. So yeah, I was experimenting with that kind of shit, and I liked how the Dreamy preset sounded. So it essentially became the whole sound for the Freedom EP. I look back on that tone with a tiny bit of rose-tinted glasses. I do actually like how it sounds. So I have a lot more fondness towards Freedom than, say, anything off of T-Fod. And, yeah. So I think another 2 months passed after that. And this was probably like when the Deltarune stuff, at least fixation-wise, kind of started dying down a lot. So I wasn't being as openly stupid and Deltarune-ish with the overall aesthetic and, or at least the headcanon side of things. I wasn't being like full force with it. So a couple months later, I made the third EP, Soulfountain Instrumentals. I'll get that up right now. There we go. Actually, one thing, going back to Freedom really quickly, because I've just remembered. There were actually 2 covers on this EP as well. So there was 6 songs in total, 4 of them original, 2 of them covers. One of the covers was Saint Anger, which I have covered again since, and it's a tiny bit better, in my opinion, to how it sounded on the Freedom EP. And again, because that's copyright material, can't play that, so I had to remove it from the 5th Anniversary Archive channel for legal reasons. And the second cover was actually of a game track. It was Rooftop Rampage from Crash to Insanity, because I think I was properly, like, fixating on watching, like, Cat Icarus videos as well. And one bit in particular, especially on the Crash to Insanity review, was when he was talking about the music. So, like, some tracks you'll be jamming out like this, that kind of shit. And I was like, ooh, what's that song? That sounds pretty damn good, actually. So I looked it up. It was Rooftop Rampage. And then I started listening to, like, covers that people did of the song themselves. And I thought I'd give it a go myself. And lo and behold, it sounded like shit. And got omitted off of the off of the final 5th anniversary re-release, because copyright. Is the copyright some Sebastian Wolf bullshit? No, it's just I removed them because I knew I would at least get a copyright claim from probably not only Metallica, but probably whoever it is that wrote the music for Crash to Insanity. I think it was Spiral Mouth or something like that. I can't remember. but it's something mouth because they were an a cappella group. And yeah, basic gist. There are now 3 covers from like OG Fountain that are lost to time and will probably never be heard ever again. So yeah, that's all fun. So now that I've officially talked about everything I can remember regarding the Freedom EP, now we can move on to Soulfountain instrumentals. So this was, again, around the time that my Deltarune fixation was starting to die down. So you can tell, like, the soul it's grayed out. It's not got that soul in it anymore. It's not got it, man. There's no soul in Soulfountain. Fuck. And there's no Susie and Ralsei souls anymore. It's just a singular grey soul in the background. This, again, like the previous 2 EPs, was recorded with my Cruiser RG600 and my custom KLA-10 amp. So nothing really changed in regards to gear. I didn't even know what an effect pedal was at the time, I'm fairly certain. And one thing as well, I'm going to bring up that I failed to mention for both the previous EPs. The first 4, like, batches of songs that I recorded do not have track panning. This is because I didn't know at the time that GarageBand had track panning, and I also didn't know what track panning was, so I couldn't really experiment with that kind of thing, and it won't be until the first full album that I recorded, Icy Hell, that we finally actually hear some track panning shit. So yeah. So, Deltarune was dying down in terms of fixating, but I still wanted to write music because, you know, writing music's fun. I was enjoying it. I was in the groove. I was in the mood, man. I was in my flow and shit. And I wouldn't actually start doing groove stuff for a good few years. Lost chance to draw the Fun Gang plus Lancer on the Weezer background. Yeah. Alright. What I should do later on at some point, I'll probably post it on this channel as opposed to my Soulfountain one, but I'll record a like a Lost Soulfountain album 2020 -12 and just have it be like an old style recording, like a garage band and an amplifier, no pedals or anything. And then yawning again, sorry chat, it's like 8 o'clock in the evening for me. But yeah, I should do that and then just draw like the Weezer cover with the Deltarune characters and say like, oh shit, it's an old Soulfountain album that I never shared. Also, hi Clown Blocks, I do remember you. Welcome back to the chat, my friend. So yeah. So the Instrumentals EP was around the time that I was starting to kind of go back to a lot of stuff, at least at the time. So, like, looking back on family members and, like, time I spent with them, some are, like, really old riffs and stuff as well, which predated Soulfountain altogether, and predated the Fire Sci-Fi idea. They were actually for my webcomic, or at least the iteration at the time for my webcomic Otherworld, which shameless plug down in the description, as well as the Discord server and the main Soulfountain channel stuff. What's this? I'm just basically going over, like, the history of my Soulfountain stuff. So, from, like, the very beginning, back in, like, 2020, like, early 2019 to 2020 era, all the way up to, like, now. So, like, the new album that I'm currently working on. It's just, like, documenting my history and kind of mainly for, obviously, archival purposes, but also for my own sake, because I forget a lot of shit. So, yeah. But Instrumentals was a time when I was kind of looking back on stuff and thinking, what can I do? What can I write about? What can I reuse from, like, old Otherworld stuff? And I'm fairly certain the track Slaughterhouse used a lot of old riffs from guitar tracks I recorded from Otherworld, because I had an acoustic guitar a while ago. It was more so a classical, but GarageBand had like the little amp simulators, so I used that. It sounded like complete and utter ass, bro, but I tried well with what I did. I worked with what I had. That's the phrase I was looking for, and it was memorable enough for me to at least use a couple of old riffs from the Otherworld stuff. Back when it wasn't actually called Otherworld, I'm fairly certain it was called the Universals. So yeah, that's like super old shit right there. And Un Souvenir de Hilda, butchering of the French language or French accent there, I do apologize if I offended anyone with that, it is a late tribute instrumental track to my great-grandmother on my mum's side of the family, because I didn't really spend much time with her, and I feel like the time that I did, I kind of took her for granted. Keep in mind, this was like decades ago, like at least 2010 to like 2009-ish to 2011-ish, because she passed away fairly early on in the 2010s, I do believe. I could be wrong about that. But it's basically just a very late tribute to my great-grandmother. No lyrics, obviously, because again, instrumentals. There's no words. There's no words on any of these songs aside from the first track, which is literally just a count-in. So, yeah, it was a very like reminiscing kind of thing. This EP, these 4 songs? No, 5. Wait, did I just hear pass away? Yes, I was on about my grandmother. She passed away like 14-ish years ago now, I think. Also, it's been a long time since I've chatted here, at least 1 month, 4 weeks. That's fair enough, it's alright, don't worry about it, man. It's nice to see you back here regardless, I will say that. So, essentially, what I did on the first 2 EPs, so Freedom and Field of Darkness, I did again for instrumentals. GarageBand set my amp on top, not my amp, my phone on top of my amp. Hold on. My mum's just talking to a friend. Sorry, chat. Sorry about that. Well, she was talking to me. But, yeah, so instrumentals followed similar recording process, and I used to put my phone on top of my amp when really I should have been putting it in front of my amp, because I didn't know that microphone placements were also an integral part to like tone shaping and whatnot. So I just thought, hey, this sounds pretty cool, I guess. And it's why you can hear a lot of like the actual string noise in the background on a lot of these early Soulfountain tracks. Have you ever thought of putting a fork in the microwave?
No, don't worry, I have. I heard it gives explosive results.
Don't put a fork in the microwave, for the love of God. It's not worth it. As a child, no, I haven't. I don't think I had any kind of thoughts like that as a child, I'll be honest. But yeah, so the amp stuff I wouldn't recommend it. I really wouldn't. So yeah, amp stuff was same, guitar stuff was same, microphone placement was the same on all the albums as well, EPs prior to this one as well, so on top of the amp instead of in front of it. And I think one of the things I did differently in terms of the GarageBand side of things was switch up the dreamy preset sound to more like stereo surround one, which you can kind of hear, I think, on this EP. A lot better than some of the other ones later on. And it was definitely it was a step in the right direction to kind of make me think, oh, actually, that sounds good in like a stereo surround kind of thing. How do I actually do that without just recording one track? So I'm going to play the first track off of this EP, The Undoing of Earth, and it has a guitar riff at the beginning, which will sound very, very familiar if you've listened to any of the more recent stuff that I've done. An example, anything from late 2024 onwards, specifically on All Cylinders. So this is The Undoing of Earth from Soulfountain Instrumentals. I'm gonna go get my water bottle while this is playing, so I will be uno momento, chat. Yeah, that main riff sounds very familiar, don't it? At least it will do later on. So, instrumentals, again, it kind of had that stereo sound a little bit, so it definitely was a step in the right direction in terms of experimentation with audio stuff. I like it, fair enough, that's fair enough. Honest to God, if I'm being brutally honest, with instrumentals, the description of the archive video sums it up perfectly, and this goes through the whole thing. I honestly forget about this one. Like, while I was setting up the stream, I was getting all the pictures for each of the albums on EPs and shit. I completely skipped over this one for the next EP that we're going to bring up in a minute, codenamed Dreadwave. And it wasn't until I was like, wait, wasn't there something in between Dreadwave and Freedom? I'm fairly certain there was. Instrumental! Shit, man! I knew I forgot something, so I had to go back, rename the Dreadwave image, number 4, just so I could have instrumentals be image number 3. So, yeah, if that's an indication as to what my stance is on this EP, it's not that I don't like it, I just don't remember it. So, yeah. And again, because it's an instrumentals EP, there's no lyrics whatsoever, aside from that one counting you heard at the beginning of Undoing of Earth. So, yeah. I believe as well, on the second track, this is around the time that I bought my bass guitar. I think it was a chord one. I think it was a chord bass guitar. I can't remember what model it was. It was red, sparkly, and had 4 strings on it. It looked pretty nice. So, I think it was a chord... Yeah, it was a chord CCB90. It was a pretty damn good bass, I would say, and I kind of actually want to get one back for my recent shit, just so I can actually have bass, as opposed to a guitar dropped an octave. So, moving on to...
Codename Dreadwave.
Before anyone says anything, no, this cover is not AI generated. This cover was actually of a spectrogram, or like a wavelength kind of thing. So I think there was like this Google website back in 2020 where you could like just fuck around with like a theremin or something. Basically like the that kind of shit, you know, like that weird space sounding thing. And it would visualize it for you. So I decided, in all my wisdom and idiocy, to snipping tool it and make a cover off of that. Obviously, it's got image filters on it, so like some of the contrast is down. There's a vignette around it, so it kind of like fades in and out around the corners. The contrast is a bit, you know, the usual shit when it comes to editing software stuff. And I do believe it was the last time I used the soul from Deltarune on anything music related that I've done, to a point. At least from the original 2020 EPs, because this is the last of the 2020 shit now. We've reached the end of the first year already, excluding Soulfountain Symphony, because again, that's lost media now. This is it. This is where the 2020 portion of the Soulfountain stuff ends. So, Codename Dreadwave was made, I think, I want to say another 2 months after instrumentals. It might have been early 2021, late 2020-ish, so it could have been like an in-between album or EP, because at the time, this was actually an album. I had recorded a shit ton more songs for it, but a lot of those songs are now missing as well, so there's some original shit that I don't have anymore. So, especially in regards to stuff that I did in between, because there was a few singles in between that I did. One called Closing Time, another called Open Wounds. Fairly certain there was a song called Sunshine, which was actually a DDLC inspired track. Somehow it was instrumental, so I don't know how I got Doki Doki influence from it. But the original version of that was called Sunshine for Sayori. Cheesy as fuck, and looking back at it now,
Kinda cringe, not gonna lie, bro.
but yeah. Dreadwave was definitely kind of like the I don't know what to do anymore period. And I'm fairly certain, as well, I was contemplating calling it for Soulfountain at the time. So Dreadwave could have been like the last thing that I did. Thank God I didn't, because I can't keep a promise for shit. At least when it comes to my own promises. So, yeah. Dreadwave, I believe, is another forgettable one for me. In terms of major content on the EP, the only thing I really remember is the title track, Codename Dreadwave, which is an instrumental. which I won't be playing because we've had 3 instrumentals in a row now, and I'm kind of avoiding my my vocal shit, so I need to talk about my vocal style. Initially, Fields of Darkness, I used basically a vocal style with like a octave drop supporting it. You know what is forgettable? Me? No, you're not. Shut up. Me being unforgettable. You're not forgettable. Shut up, Melton. Stop talking bad about yourself. But the vocal style for, I think, only the Fields of Darkness was you had a normal vocal track, but it had some weird kind of effect on it where it had an octave down as well. So generally it was a bit weird, and it kind of didn't work anyway. It didn't sound right, especially given that I didn't go for the yeah kind of vocal. So I went for the yeah like an entire octave down in register myself compared to what I do now. Because at the time I wasn't home alone when I recorded my stuff, so I couldn't really belt out vocals. There were a few exceptions, I think, on Dreadwave and Freedom, that I could actually go for it, and that's when I properly started improving in the vocal department, especially on Dreadwave. Also, how's it going? It's going good. We're 4 EPs in. We're on the last of the 2020 shit, as I've mentioned a little bit ago, before you showed back up, Milton. And yeah, so I think T-Fod had the weird like octave down in both register and effect thing. Freedom, I think, had that as well, but I started trying to go a bit higher in register with my vocal style, so like the more yeah kind of shit to put it in a term, is what we'll call it. And then instrumentals, again, didn't have vocals because I was actually experimenting at the time on my vocal style. I think I was recording Dreadwave partially at the same time as instrumentals, so that's probably why it released after the fact. And I was experimenting with my vocal style, trying to push myself with like the yeah-yes, and yeah, it's just it's just this is the EP. Sorry, I keep wanting to say album. It used to be an album. It's an EP now. That kind of helped me take off a bit more in terms of vocal style shit. In terms of amps and guitars, again, RG600 custom KLA 10 amp. RG600 being my guitar, and GarageBand on top of the amp with my phone instead of in front of it. I think this was when I ditched the kind of stereo sound again. I was going in the right direction, and then I immediately screwed it by ditching the kind of stereo quality sound, even though it wasn't proper stereo quality yet. But it was a bit of a step backwards in terms of like sound for the guitars and the tone. Unrelated, but what actually is the difference between an album and an EP? I think an album is like 6+ songs, so like anything over half an hour is considered an album. An EP is at maximum, I think, 29 minutes, so it's an extended play. So an LP would be, I think, a long play or some shit? I don't know, let me look this up. I'm gonna look it up before. What is an LP in music terms? Yeah, an LP record or long play refers to a vinyl format which typically contains a full album. So that would be, an album would be an LP. An EP is just an extended play, and EPs is shorter music release with 3 to 6 songs and a playtime under 30 minutes. There you go. Whereas a full album is 8 songs or more with longer runtime, traditionally around 40 minutes.
Not for me, not for my later shit.
So 3 songs on all 4 minutes. So 3 songs, all 4 minutes is an EP. Yes, because that is more than one song, but it's not over half an hour. So, like, a 12-minute EP there is essentially what it is, yeah. So, yeah. I kind of derailed there for lost my train of thought. I think we were on about the, like, the production side of things. So, yeah. Sound quality-wise, it's definitely a step back, technically, from instrumentals. It doesn't have the kind of surround soundish thingy the instrumentals did. But vocally, it was an improvement because I had started to actually try a bit more. And don't start playing yet. I need to pick a track first, you son of a bitch. So, on codename Dreadwave, which I still fucking love that name, by the way. Sorry about that, I was just wondering. It's alright, Melton, it's alright, don't worry. If anything, explaining shit like that, I have fun with anyway, so any questions regarding, like, music shit, again, I welcome it. Don't worry about it derailing your thing. But, codename Dreadwave, again, I fucking love that name. I'm probably gonna reuse it at some point. Has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks. 3 of them being, you know, fucking instrumentals. Also, really quickly, it's Clown Blocks, by the way. Welcome back, Clown Blocks. I am going to time out John Racist purely under prospect of that name. We don't want that here, thank you very much. But, yeah. Dreadwave is 6 tracks, 3 instrumental. One of them is a fucking bass solo. Because, again, this was around the time I got my bass guitar. And, yeah, I was just generally experimenting with a bit more stuff in terms of gear. So that I think this is when I properly started learning, like, alright, what kind of equipment do I need? What, like, stuff do I need to sound slightly better? Bass guitar being one of them. Effect pedals and stuff like that wouldn't come into play until the next thing that I did after Dreadwave, which was the Icy Hell album. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And I think, yeah, overall Dreadwave was kind of just like that point in my musical journey where I was like, alright, I actually need to start looking into, like, how do I, you know, how do I do shit? How do I actually properly sound like a guy making music and not complete and utter shit? Because for the first 2 EPs, I forgot to mention this as well, the first 2 EPs, and I think a little bit of instrumentals, had programmed bass, so I didn't have a bass guitar. What was the next best thing that I could do? Just program it in, using a bass, like, MIDI preset on GarageBand. So that's what I did. And it sounded, not really happy with it, not really upset with it. More so just indifferent, so. But yeah, so I'm gonna play one of the vocal tracks this time, because I've been avoiding them. The whole 2 vocal tracks that we have on this EP. Yeah, it's gonna be a doozy. So I'm gonna play Overseer. This is the 3rd track in, after 1 vocal track, 1 instrumental. And I, honest to God, don't remember how it sounds. So, it's gonna be a case of, we're experiencing this in the moment, chat. We're all in this together. So, this is Overseer from Codename Dreadwave, and I hit to kind of backpedal here, but to the John Racist person, if you are still in chat right now, please change your name. We don't welcome that shit here again, like I mentioned. Anyway. Here is Overseer from Codename Dreadwave. that one kind of just ended. I'm gonna be real. I didn't have a proper outro. What the fuck, man? What the hell, bro? But yeah, you can see what I mean by the vocal department was a bit rough. And I, honest to God, forgot that I used that kind of lower octave effect thing up until Dreadwave. Shit. I thought I dropped it at Dreadwave, but I guess not. So, yeah. So I mentioned before playing that track that this was the last one to feature the soul from Undertale and Deltarune on the cover, and I'm fairly certain around this time this was when I completely detached Soulfountain from anything Toby Fox related, so it became my thing properly. So, from Dreadwave onward, up until another EP, which we'll talk about at the time when we get to it, there is not really any more Deltarune related things in terms of cover art or drawings. In regards to the drawing stuff, I kind of stopped doing them after a point. I think it was like mid-2020, either mid-2020 or early 2021, so around the time I'd made Dreadwave, that I just stopped drawing Deltarune AU stuff and never really picked it back up. And honestly, I don't blame myself for doing that. Detaching Soulfountain from Deltarune just to kind of make it my own musical thing is probably the best thing I could have ever done for it. So, yeah. So now we enter a period of time where I didn't really know what to do with Soulfountain at all. After 4 EPs that sounded pretty much identical to each other, and me winding down with all of the drawing shit, like I mentioned, I was kinda just stuck when it came to Soulfountain. So I made the Soulfountain Symphony thing in early 2021 to celebrate 1 year of Soulfountain at the time. And I'm going to get an image up that I drew specifically for Soulfountain Symphony. It's one of the only remnants I have left of it, because the video for it had the drawings that I showed off earlier in the stream as some of the cover arts for it. And this one that I'm about to bring up in a second, once I moved it down beneath the chat and made it a little bit smaller, this was what I considered the main one. It's very basic and boring. It's literally just characters from Deltarune and Headcanon Asriel just superimposed over the top of a fucking stock image of a stage, stock images of Marshall amps and Harley Benton guitars and whatnot, and a drum kit. Yeah, it's very Diet Cola, Amazing World of Gumball energy. So I made Soulfountain Symphony for the 1 year thing. I mentioned that a lot now, which I do apologize. And after that, I think that is when I discovered what track panning was. And I am gonna retroactively amend a point. The Deltarune stuff didn't get dropped until after Symphony, so there you go. It wasn't Dreadwave where I stopped it, it was Symphony. So, around early 2021, toward like June-ish, I want to say May, June-ish time. I could be entirely wrong about that. I think it was more so April, May-ish time. I figured out like I mentioned, what track panning was on GarageBand, and I will apologise if you can hear my mother coughing in the background. She is currently ill. She's got a bit of a cold, either the cold or flu. I don't remember. But I figured out what track panning was on GarageBand, and I was like, holy shit, because I was already in the process of recording something at the time, and I thought, this sounds pretty good with track panning. I'ma see if I can work with this. That spiraled off into its own thing, eventually becoming this. Icy Hell. This was the only album I had made at that time. It's one of my least favourite things I have ever produced, in retrospect. And I'm fairly certain as well, this is when I'd started actually getting more equipment. So more stuff for my guitars. I'm fairly certain as well, aside from my RG600 and my bass, I had got a Harley Benton EX84, and I used that to record most of this album, if not all of this album on, because I do believe that's when my RG600 kind of died. So the output jack completely decided, I don't want to do this no more, and decided to completely give up, rendering my RG600 useless until further notice. So, thankfully, my mum got me a guitar for Christmas, again, my Harley Benton EX84, in gloss black. And it's the older model before they added the little cutout on the lower strap button. So, I recorded Icy Hell around 2021-ish time, like mid-2021. And I released it mid-2021 as well. So it was a couple months after, or maybe even before Symphony, because again, I'm fairly certain I was working on these songs before Symphony had released on the 30th of May 2021. And to say I'd learned track panning was a very, very piss poor way of going about it. So the cover art for Icy Hell is one of the rare instances where I had actually drawn it on paper, liked how it looked, and thought, damn, that shit good. So I kept it, and it became the final cover. Granted, with a bit of editing in Photoshop. And I also decided to come up with a new logo as well, so we're not using that 8-bit text anymore. Properly beginning what I call the better era, the new era of Soulfountain. It was a lot more improved in terms of look for the logo, obviously, I think. And I might go back to this logo at some point. I might recreate it. And generally trying to push my music writing a bit more, so song structures became a fair bit better, as well as tone, debatable. And yeah, it was definitely, it was kind of a step in the right direction, but at the same time, not a step in the right direction. I'm fairly certain as well, this was the first album that I had to feature a guitar pedal. I finally got an effects pedal, chat. What the fuck? So, the pedal that I had, and still have, actually, I do believe, when I recorded this album, was my Behringer UM300, I think? Let me look it up. Behringer UM... Yep, it's the Ultra Metal pedal. So essentially, a Boss Metal Zone clone. And it sounded like shit. And you'll find that out in a moment when I play one of the tracks. But that was a Christmas present as well, off of my sister. And it... For a time, no idea how EQ worked, so I just kind of messed around with tone settings on it just to see what I could get, and you will hear the end result of my experimentation. Again, it's not good. But in terms of gear and stuff, it was essentially that was the new addition. So there were no other guitar effect pedals, there were no new amps, no new guitars, but, well, yeah, there was a new guitar. Fucking dumbass! My Harley Benton EX84 was new as well. And, yeah, so... It was definitely a times are changing kind of thing. So I'm going to get that up now. Oh god, I'm fucking dreading this. So a few songs I think as well, actually toward the end, I'd bought an EQ pedal or some shit. I could be wrong about that, but a lot of this stuff is just ran through my amp through the Behringer UM300 and my Harley Benton EX84, and my bass guitar actually got a bit of use on it as well. And yeah, so I don't really have much to say regarding Icy Hell. I was in college by the time I was like midway through it. I'm fairly certain on one of the tracks, which I might actually play in a moment, because it's the most tolerable, was recorded entirely with college equipment. So it was my first year of music performance, I believe. And in one of the classrooms, there was a Line 6 modeler amp. It was one of those ones with like all those presets built in and shit like that. It wasn't like a Line 6 Spider or anything. I don't think I actually used one of those on any of my shit. But the amps that I used in college was a Line 6 like modeler amp, and then a Marshall amplifier as well. I don't remember what types they were, because again, this was 4 years ago at this point, and generally with my memory being shit, it's a bit hard for me to remember that much specific detail in the amps that I generally disregarded because they weren't my own. So yeah, for one song specifically, I used different amps. The rest of it was done on my own stuff at home, and it's night and day. Especially given how decent the one song actually sounded. So I'm gonna get that album up now. You can stop playing your musics for a moment, you silly goof. And I'm gonna actually play two songs. I'm gonna play one of the ones that is with my at-home equipment, an instrumental track, and then I'm also going to play the one that was recorded using the college equipment. So we're getting two songs for Icy Hell, just to compare the stark contrast in what I thought sounded good versus what actually sounded good. So this first track is the unbearable one. This is Open Wounds, which I believe was also a re-recording of one of the singles that I lost during the Dreadwave Icy Hell like downtime point in the Soulfountain history. So I'm gonna shut up for however long this song is, because it's like the last track on the album. It looks to be around 5-ish minutes. So I'm going to shut up for this one, and then I'll play the good sounding one afterwards. So here is Open Wounds. yeah, it's not good. That was the tone that I had at home for recording that album, and it fucking sucks. Oh, but would you believe me if I said we're only halfway through my older discography shit? Oh god, we've still got 5 other things to sit through before we're done. At least with the old stuff. So I am actually going to not show off the better sounding one. Forgive me, chat. I'm gonna skip straight to the next album that I did because unless I make this like a 3-hour stream, I could probably go with 3 hours. Let's be fair. So, yeah. On top of stuff that I've already said for Icy Hell, I don't really have much else to add. It was essentially similar recording process, except this time I actually learned track panning, had a new guitar, had a new effect pedal, actually used my bass properly for the full album, which is always good as well, and I'm fairly certain in terms of recording techniques, it was just the same kind of tone presets. Maybe I've learned what EQ was at the time as well, or at least in terms of like a wavelength EQ. So actually modifying it with the little graph thingy. And I do believe I finally learnt to not put my phone on top of the amp. I finally put it in front. So, granted, like, sat in front of it, just laying on the fucking desk that I had. But, for the most part, it captured the sound of my amp a lot better than having it on top and having all, like, the pick, like, the plucking noises on the strings and, like, the pick scraping and shit. It definitely drowned it out. Especially with that god-awful tone. So, yeah. Icy Hell we will kind of come back to later on, when we get into, like, the current era Soulfountain stuff, so anything from 2023 onwards, so dark fantasy shit. But the album after Icy Hell... Oh, God, you'll have to excuse me again, I'm yawning, chat. I'm very eepy. But the album after Icy Hell was another symphony album. I decided to make Soulfountain Symphony Night 2, or at least what I called Night 2. And it was definitely a lot more of a... It felt more like a, oh, here's some stuff that I've done before, here's some new stuff, and here's like a piano rendition of the song that we just listened to, Open Wounds. But, like the first Soulfountain Symphony, that too is lost media. I had a To Live Is To Die cover by Metallica on that, along with, like, a lot of other shit. And that was, I believe as well, in terms of how the actual, like, full album was done, it was played more as, like, a fake live concert. So, me being me, I recorded the tracks in, and then put audience sound effects recorded through GarageBand on my fucking shitty little iPhone in the background, and it didn't sound good. So, yeah. If I ever find that, I'm not sharing that anytime soon. It's embarrassing. So, yeah. After Soulfountain Symphony Night 2, though, and I think that was actually, like, another time I dipped into the Deltarune shit, but it was literally for one thing, and that was it. I'm fairly certain I had a cover of Blackened on there as well, which sounded like complete garbo, because it had the tone of Icy Hell mixed with the tone of my next album, When June Comes Around Again. This one, I have a few songs that I remember fondly on this, and kind of want to re-record for the new album that I'm working on, but honest to God, don't know if I will, because I don't want to re-record too much of my old stuff and get called out for like, oh, he's just rehashing his old shit, he's making it new again. It's like, yeah, but I'm making it sound better, shut up! So, yeah, it's, this was, and you can see right there on the bottom, that's my name. Oh, fuck. Fuck, shit. I forgot about that. we can just crop that out. Give me a minute. But yeah, so when June comes around again, was going to be named something else, I do believe. It wasn't going to be called When June Comes Around Again. But around, like, midway through the production, I think my great-grandmother on my dad's side of the family passed away during production. My Nana June. So it was definitely one of those things where, because I was already in the process of making it, I could actually take time to sit down and write something in honor of my Nana June, which I'm happy that I did that, because I didn't know her that well, but the fact that I wrote something at least was enough of a thing for me to be like, I want to pay my respects, so I'm dedicating an entire album to her, basically. Aside from maybe, say, the final track, which is actually the title track, I never really actually did do much more regarding that, which makes me feel a little bit horrible, if not very horrible. Because again, a lot of the songs that I had written were already in production by the time that she'd passed away, so I kind of had to work with what I already had on top of a new song dedicated to her. But regarding gear and stuff, I think my RG600 around the time of Icy Hell, no, I think before Icy Hell actually, I think it was in the down period between Dreadwave and Icy Hell, my RG600 actually gave up. The output jack died. I've probably mentioned this. I feel like I've already mentioned this before in the stream, but I'm going to mention it again for my own sake. So yeah, my RG600 stopped working out of nowhere one day, just in the middle of college, and I got pissed off. So my Harley Benton EX84 was my main axe for a while, and all of June was recorded on that and my chord bass guitar. So I think I had finally bought an EQ pedal around the time of recording this album. It was the Behringer EQ, the 7-band EQ. I think it was the EQ 700. Let me look that up. EQ 700. There you go. The 7-band graphic equalizer, and I unfortunately got one of the dodgy ones where it had this really weird, like, ringing noise whenever it was activated. It didn't matter what frequency I had all the things set to, like, it didn't matter what EQ settings I had on it, it would always let out this weirdly obnoxious ringing sound. So, yeah. I'll also apologize if I'm drinking water a lot. I am getting a bit rough in the throat because I'm yapping so much. So, I'd bought a Behringer 7-band EQ at the time, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I tried using EQ shit on top of a distortion pedal that already had quite a lot of EQ stuff and was not properly EQ'd, like, legit anyway, so it sounded like crap regardless. But for the most part, June is kind of a step up from Icy Hell on some tracks, but a lot of them you can tell I was in that in-between phase, because some of the tones on this album are very similar to Icy Hell, very high-end, a lot of, like, it's very fizzy with how it sounds, it's very harsh and unbearable, so yeah, a lot of it is very much in the high end as opposed to well balanced. And there's no mids. There's no mids at all. A lot of my tones like from Icy Hell onward, did not have any mid-range whatsoever, so it was very hollow sounding, very dry and very rough, very ear grating. So yeah, give it a minute.
Stop playing there, Nessie.
But yeah. So in terms of overproduction stuff, I don't really have much else to say regarding it. I've pretty much gone over what I can remember, because these 2021 albums, if I'm being brutally honest, aren't really that eventful in terms of shit that I was doing. This is when I'd finally found my stride in terms of how vocal stuff was gonna go, how I'd finally improved in recording guitars, so I was actually like quad tracking them, like track panning them as well, so that they were all sounding decent to, holy shit, what is this, bro, like, ow! And just generally experimenting with what I think is actually my proper sound, even now. I wish I could go back to how I kind of sounded during these days, in terms of just, like, the way I played guitar. Yeah, kind of keep some of the new stuff that I do, especially on, like, the newer album that I'm working on, but I wish I could kind of go back to that weird period in 2020, 2021, where I was just doing whatever the fuck sounded cool to me. So, I don't know. If I do an album after the self-title, which I'm already going back on my decision to put Soulfountain on. Yeah, it does. I'll probably do singles, but albums might be a while. Yeah, if I do any more shit after the new album that I got coming out, then I will probably try and go back into that weird experimental side of shit and actually try, you know? But for the time being, I need to rest my voice a little bit, because my throat's kind of hurting a little bit now. So I'm going to play an instrumental. In fact, no, I'm going to play the first track off this album, called Bloodshot, because I've just remembered another thing that happened during the production of this album. To go on one more little tangent before we begin the track, I had really irritated eyes during the production of one of the tracks, hence why it's called Bloodshot. And it's basically rubbing my eyes to a point where they became irritated and, like, very crusty, and it was hard to actually, like, blink and stuff. It became very, very unbearable for a time, to a point where I wrote a song about it. So, yeah. The yawning night strikes again. So this is Bloodshot from Soulfountain when June comes around again.
You're falling into great despair. Your eyesight is blurring fast. The blinding light, no, it won't last. Fix me a cry. I must regain my sight. Oh, can't you see what you've become? Darkness, you are all alone. Oh, can't you see what you've become? The void becomes your only home. Come on now, let's throw the night. Pour out all of my bloody insides. Hunt for the one that took my life. Yeah, he's the one that started with my sight. I'm trapped in a void once more. And now I feel the pain, I'm all alone. Can't you see what I become? Darkness is now all you know. Can't you see what I've become? It's cold inside, it's all you know. Can't you see what I've become? My eyes turn to bloodshot. No, no. Can't you see what I've become? Now I'm left here to rot.
Honest to God, right? Listening back to that for this stream, I think Bloodshot might be one of the better, if not one of the best structured songs of my old shit. I genuinely think that was a very fucking good song even now. Tone-wise as well, for the guitar tone, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't as high in the the treble and the high end that a lot of the Icy Hell stuff is. I think it's one of the few tracks on When June Comes Around Again that doesn't suffer from being made immediately after finishing up production on ICL. I think it was one of those ones toward the later end of the production that I had thought, you know what, this tone sounds a lot better. I'm gonna go with this. And part of me wants to try and get that tone again. I do have the equipment for it. I just need the amp and the... or at least some of the equipment for it. I just need the amp back, the KLA-10, and the Behringer 7-band EQs. So that might be something that I do later on. Again, might record an album with that kind of sound, like an old Fountain thing. But yeah, should mention again as well, everything up until Dreams from a Dark Fantasy, I'm going to get this out of the way now, everything up until Dreams from a Dark Fantasy, maybe up until the Chapter 1 EP when we get to it, was all recorded with my custom KLA-10 amplifier. So, oh, sorry if you heard my neck crack then, that felt good though, god damn. Yeah, a lot of stuff, if not all the stuff up to a point, was recorded with a tiny little shitty practice amp that I somehow made work on a few occasions. So, yes, it's very good indeed. So, in between June and the next album, I don't think I actually really did anything. That was probably around the time that I'd started doing stuff for my other band, Overdriven, and I didn't really do much for Soulfountain around that time because I was focusing on that to a degree. But one thing that I felt like I needed to do was change up how my stuff sounded in general. So instead of doing like sometimes thrash, sometimes a bit of groove, I wanted to just go full on dad rock. To put it bluntly, I wanted to go more into heavy metal kind of shit. So, what better way to do that than to slow the fuck down? So, Soulfountain Slowing Down is the 7th album, well, the 3rd album, 7th thing overall, that I did for Soulfountain, and I believe we're actually getting into the late 2020, early 2022 stuff now. So Slowing Down started production in late 2021. I realized that I said late 2020 for the first time, fuck. But yeah, it was late 2021, around like Christmas-ish time, early 2022 that I started working on Soulfountain Slowing Down. And you can tell there's a logo change. It looks like the fucking Load cover from Metallica. It's not, believe me. It's very inspired. Again, stop playing when I want you to. I need to start actually muting the YouTube player once I finish the song, just in case. But, yeah, I had another logo change, another sound change. This one, I want to say, is the most tonally consistent out of the old albums. So it's the one that's the most solid, in my opinion, in terms of lyrics and structure. Tonally, again, it's consistent because this is when I went back to using a second amp that I actually failed to mention up until now, because I actually don't think I used it on anything else. So I don't really think I failed to mention it if I didn't use it. But there was a second amplifier that I bought. It was a Cruiser by Crafter amplifier. So the same people, Crafter, that made my Cruiser RG600 guitar, also made amplifiers, and I didn't know about that until I'd ended up buying one. And it wasn't until I used the gain stuff from that amp, just like the default like gain and tone and shit, that I thought, hey, this sounds pretty good, because it was the only amp at the time I had that had 3-band EQ built into it, not even my custom KLA-10 amp. All that had was gain, voice, and volume, not even a 3-band like equalizer shit on that thing. So the Cruiser amp I used for a good majority, if not all, of Soulfountain slowing down. And it was quite lucky that I got Soulfountain slowing down done when I did, because not too long after, that cruiser amp died. I don't have it anymore. I've long since moved it on, but it fucking perished out of nowhere. It just stopped working after a time. So that was very much fun. But yeah, production-wise, I'm fairly certain I had my RG600 back by that time. It was working again, granted with really shitty pickups in it. And my trusty Harley Benton EX84 as well. Around that time, I recorded June as well, actually. I'd just come back from a little weekend down in London. So by then, I had my Epiphone Goth Explorer that I'd got while I was down in London. And that got quite a lot of use, I think, on June as well, looking back at it, to kind of go back and fix a point on that. Because I remembered it midway through Bloodshot that I'd got the Epiphone. And it got plenty of use on slowing down as well. Another guitar as well that I got in between June and slowing down was my Harley Benton DIY SG, which in its current state is known as Shamura because it's purple and has Cult of the Lamb graphics on it. Why the hell not? So I got my Epiphone Goth Explorer and my Harley Benton SG. My SG only got used on one song, I believe, because it had mad tuning issues for a time. The tuners were very shit, and I'm fairly certain the nut wasn't filed properly either, so that was pretty bad as well. But it's in a playable state now, for the record. I only used that one song, My Desire of Fire, at the very beginning, the very first track, because it was in drop D, I believe. In terms of more pedals and stuff, you can tell this is the album that I used my Behringer 7 band EQ, because I will play the first track for you now. You hear that little ringing? That tiny little ring at the beginning. Let me slow this down so you can actually hear it a bit better. Let's go to like 0.45. That ring in there, that's my EQ pedal making that noise. I still don't know why it did it to this day. But, yeah, so I used my Behringer 7-band EQ. Fairly certain I used my Ultra Metal on a few songs. But for the most part, I tried to keep to just the amp gain and distortion channel. So I didn't manage to, you know, use it as much. But one thing I did use was my Behringer Hellbabe, my trusty wah pedal that I've mentioned a couple times on some equipment videos on my Soulfountain channel, which is down in the description. That finally makes, I think it made its debut on, I want to say either Icy Hell or June. It could have been one or the other. I'm more inclined to say June, but I could be wrong. I think it could be either album. And it definitely got a lot of use on slowing down, so songs like My Desire of Fire, the one that I'm about to play in a moment, Wandering in My Mind, got a shit ton of use. Joyride got a lot of use with it as well. Rockin' Chair, I don't think did. Darlin' didn't. Slowing Down, I think also did. I can't remember. But, yeah. In terms of songs, it's probably, again, the best that I've done. One of the tracks is called Hell and Back, and I've had to specify it's not the Beyond Magnetic song. Joyride, I mentioned that one as well. That's my least favourite song on this album. It's an album about a certain activity that adults do if they're in the mood. I shall not elaborate any further. So yeah, it's one of those songs where I wrote it, even at the time thought it sounded like shit, and even now, the vocal deliveries on that song are just god awful. So if you ever listen to this album, I will be posting the archive channel link in the description, and the chat once I've finished the old era stuff. But yeah, the Joyride's not my favorite. It might be one of my least favorite tracks that I've ever recorded. But what is my favorite track, and is also the favorite track of the drummer in my band, is the track before it, which is what I'm going to show now. This is Wandering in My Mind, and one of the things that I forgot to mention as well, I had started EQing the drums from, I think, I See Hell onwards. You can't really hear the kick drum as well as like some of that old 2020 stuff, so yeah, it's not exactly good in the drum department. Snare sounds alright. Everything else, like the higher register shit, like the cymbals and all that, and the snare, sounds fine, but you can't hear the kick drum for love nor money. So I'll apologize for that now if a lot of the mixes sound a bit crap in regards to that. But yeah, so I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna play my all-time favorite track from my old shit, Wandering in My Mind. I played this on the Plain Crazy stream the other night, and yeah, I'm playing it again because it's just a bop, so enjoy. Because I know I will.
Got a feeling that he wants to be me. Copy everything that I'll ever do. Wandering in my mind, it's in that you will find. Wanna see what happens when he talks to you. Can you see the one who looks right back at me? Identical in every sense. Arms and body, even the face follows me everywhere. Without even a single care, stalks me when I never know. Wherever I decide to go. got a feeling that he wants to be me. Copy everything that I'll ever do. What's read in my mind, it's an that you will find. Wanna see what happens when he talks to you.
Oh god, I actually fucking love that song. That's a jam. That is a jam and a half. God damn! God, Wandering is probably my favorite. I know I said it earlier, but it's... I think the vocals could be a little bit quiet in the mix, in retrospect, but like... damn! That shit good! You know? So, yeah, that's Slowing Down. There's not really much else to say on that one either. Other than, it was a very different recording process, not using my distortion pedal. But still using my EQ. And the wah, so, yeah. Moving on to the next album. This was... So if Slowing Down was very early 2022... This next album would have been around April to May-ish in terms of when I started production. Most likely March. I think Slowing Down started in March. No, Slowing Down released in March, and then the one after started in March as well. So the next album, funnily enough, is a self-title, but it's not the one that I'm working on. So the next album is called Soulfountain, and it was to celebrate 2 years of Soulfountain at the time, and was my, and probably still is, my longest album by far. This shit has not been topped in terms of runtime or amount of like tracks that's on this thing. 15 tracks in total at an hour and 16 minutes in length. This bitch long. It's pocket deep. No pocket watching in these parts. And this is what it looks like. So, yeah, this one definitely is like the monolith to get through when it comes to listening to my old shit again. But a lot of the stuff on this I'm happy with. Songs like Stand No More, Silver Lining, Maria, One Last Shot at Fresh, False Hope, a lot of stuff on this album, if I'm in the mood for it, I go back to and listen to. This is one of the more fondly cherished albums in terms of my old stuff. Especially songs like Nostalgia. The clean riff, I remember when I wrote that, it was one of those in the moment like, ooh, that sounds pretty good. And then I kept it, and then I added a bit crusher effect to it. This is when I started experimenting with like more GarageBand effect sounds. Adding a bit crusher to that riff, that little clean bit, was definitely one of the better things I could have done for that track. In regards to just overall making it sound much nicer. I forgot to mention during the Icy Hell bit as well, but by this time I had got my Harley Benton Classic Chorus, because a lot of the clean stuff I did use that, and to the extent where a lot of the time now, in my more recent stuff, so like cylinders onwards, I don't use it as much anymore. But it is back on my pedal board now, so hopefully I'm gonna change that. But around Icy Hell, I got my classic chorus, so I was properly starting to go all in with like the effects pedals and shit. I forgot to mention it then, so I'm bringing it up now. And the first self-title, the old self-title, definitely got a good bit of use when it came to some clean bits. So Interruption, I think, had it as well. Nostalgia, Never Looking for Love had it. Father, Maria had it as well. I think those are just all the tracks that had the clean, nice sounding chorus stuff. I'm going to make this a little bit larger just so it's easier for people to read should they need to. But yeah, so this one, the first self-title, it's beefy. It's pretty good. It's kind of tonally consistent with one another because I was still using my EQ pedals, my Behringer one. I think I had two at the time of recording this, actually. So I had two EQ pedals on my pedal board. My Behringer UN300 was still on my board, but granted, I'd figured out how to get a decent tone at that time. And my classic chorus was on there, as well as my wah pedal. So at the time, that was my full pedal board when it came to the effects stuff. All running into my custom KLA-10 amplifier, again, as usual. So songs like False Hope were kind of just like, kind of parody my old style in a way. At the beginning, I'll play a tiny bit of it now. You can kind of hear it. Especially when, like, the heavy shit kicks in. Like this bit. I'm fairly certain I recorded that kind of sound with the built-in gain on my custom amplifier, as well as using, like, some of the old sound presets, especially with like the dreamy sound kind of made a comeback. I was trying to replicate the Freedom EP tone in a way, and I think it kind of worked to a degree. A majority, if not all of the song, is essentially in that old Freedom EP kind of tone, up to a point where it drops before the song ends and kicks into like the track panned shit, as if to say, this is how I used to sound like. BAM! This is what I'm like now. It's awesome, it's cool, and it's such a step up from like 2 years ago. Which, to be fair, it really is. As we've seen throughout this stream, my music definitely has gotten better within 2 years' time. So, yeah, if this album was like the marker post to say, like, listen to this, then listen to Fields Darkness, because they released on the same day, roughly, and tell me it's not night and day at the time, that I've definitely improved. So I'm going to play in a moment what is considered my favorite song from this album, Maria. Before I do, the guitars and equipment I use were the same as always, so my Goth Explorer got used, my RG600 I'm fairly certain got some use as well, my not my Epiphone, I've already mentioned that, my Harley Benton EX84 got use as well, my bass, my chord bass, my good old chord, that got plenty of use as well. I had to use that for all the songs, so, yep, and I don't think I used my SG on this album, if I'm being honest. I don't think it was even working at the time. I don't think it was in a playable state, because my SG, like my RG600 for a long time, was very much unplayable. It wasn't even strung up. The pickups in it, I'm fairly certain it didn't have any at the time, because I think the pickup selector actually broke not long after I got it, so it wasn't until fairly recently, like last year-ish time, that I'd put an EMG pickup in it and got it into a playing condition. It's fully playable now. It's got 2 pickups in it and fully strung up in like C standard or C sharp standard. It's the lowest tuned guitar I've got. But yeah, Shimura wasn't working at all during that time, and yeah, it was mainly just my Epiphone RG and my Harley Benton EX84 that got use on this. So yeah. In terms of stuff that was happening during production, like to influence shit, because it was 2 years and this is an anniversary album, or at least was an anniversary album, I essentially just wanted to go all out with it. So, 15 songs, as you can see, 4 instrumental, a lot of vocal tracks, probably to make up for both instrumentals as an EP and all the shit that I wrote on Dreadwave, or at least like the 3 instrumentals I wrote on Dreadwave. Oh, I can't stop yawning. I'll probably just go over really quickly like all of the old Soulfountain shit, because we have 2 more things to go through before we get to like the current era stuff. I might do a separate stream for all the most recent shit, because it is getting late and my throat is starting to hurt a little bit. Feels like I've got a lump in there somewhere, like right under my Adam's apple. That's why I'm drinking so much water. But yeah, I wanted to just like go balls to the walls with it. Shit tons of tracks, shit tons of different genres and stuff. So stuff like Stand No More, that's a country song compared to what I usually do. I experimented with quite a bit of country shit toward the end of the older stuff, because there is another track on the next album we'll get into. And stuff like Nostalgia being a bit more just like heavy metal or just like rock kind of stuff with Silver Lining. It was definitely a very different album, and I believe One Last Shot at Thrash has the lowest I've ever tuned, period. When it comes to Soulfountain stuff in general, I think it's double drop A. So the low E string is dropped an entire octave to match the A string. I'm fairly certain. So, yeah. It's a meaty one, so I'm not gonna play Maria. I'm gonna play One Last Shot at Thrash. And I do believe this was when I'd restrung my classical guitar as well, because for a lot of my stuff, I didn't use my classical. It was only until this album that I got it sorted and thought, hey, you know what? Let's do some shit with that. And even more so on the next album. But we'll get to that when we get to that again. So this is One Last Shot at Thrash. Because for a time, it really was. So, yeah. Enjoy. Alright, so I lied about that being in Double Drop A. No, that's just straight up an entire octave down from E. Holy shit. I actually think that's lower than, like, A. Because if it was in A, it'd be like A standard. That's just straight up double drop E. What the fuck? Okay, or like drop E. Some shit. It's an octave down, that's all I know. So, yeah. The self-titled, definitely, I got a little bit crazier with, like, experimentation and shit. But I personally think the peak of my experimentation when it comes to different sounds and stuff is the next album. Before we get to that, one more point I want to make about this. Self-titled, the first one, is there are 3 songs toward the end. Surge, Maria, and Chaos Blast. All themed around Sonic characters. And, yeah. That was when I was kind of in my, like, little Sonic renaissance phase. Like, I was kind of going through, like, getting back into Sonic stuff quite a lot around that point. And I just generally liked recording songs based off of characters that I like. Granted, yeah, good majority of them so far have been Sonic ones, but
We can look past that, don't worry about it.
so yeah. Self-title, I think if I were to take a couple songs out and refine it a little bit more, I'd probably take out Never Looking for Love, especially given that I have Lonely by Choice now. That one's like just a much better version of that song. Completely different sounding, like, songs from one another, but lyrically I feel like I've handled it much better in Lonely by Choice than I did in Never Looking for Love. And I'd also get rid of maybe Surge and What It's Like to Die. So I'd essentially remove 3 songs, whittle it down to 12 tracks in total, if I could, like, do it again now. Or, like, if I was making it for the first time now, I would just do that. I would only go for, like, 12 tracks, because 15 tracks, holy shit. Again, what was I thinking? But yeah. Coming up to the second to last album, or topic for today, regarding my music stuff, my Soulfountain history, because I am going to do a part 2 to this stream. Because, again, my throat fucking hurts right now. Because I've been yapping for so long. The next album after the first self-title, naturally, is Soulfountain 2. We had Soulfountain 1 and that was so good. We needed a second one. So we got Soulfountain 2. Why the fuck not? So yeah, Soulfountain 2. I don't really call it a second self-title. The first self-title is only called the first self-title in retrospect because the album I'm working on currently is also a self-title, so it will be, technically speaking, the second self-title. But, yeah, Soulfountain 2 was, I think, actually started production in between the first self-title and whenever I felt like releasing this. So I was kind of in a weird phase where I was technically speaking working on 2 albums, but it was more so ideas that I didn't think fit the first self-title ended up on 2. So songs like Why Are We Here, Sleep, I'm fairly certain I had around for ages up till that point, as well as Town Lost to Time. That shit, those were definitely leftovers from the album before that I couldn't refine or just didn't really know what to do with at the time until I had fleshed them out a little bit later on. So, in terms of equipment and stuff, it's the same from the last album. So 2 EQs, my UM300, my Harley Benton Classic Chorus, and my Behringer Hellbabe. All the guitars mentioned again as well, including the classical now, which I'm fairly certain at the time had fully steel strings on it, which I shouldn't have done, really, because it would throw off the tension, but I didn't know any better. And I think, again, Shimura didn't get any use. So, yeah, it was pretty much the same recording process for this album as it was the other 3 before it. And, yeah. Well, the other 4 before it now, by technicality, so, yeah. Not really much to say in regards to this one, other than around this time I was in the Bypass family, so we have a song called No Name, The Gun Game, which was basically just a song about a gun game with no name. It's a glorified fan song, basically, for a Roblox game, which in turn... There is one more thing after this, but it is in the new stuff, so I'm probably gonna leave it until then to talk about it in the next stream. But, yeah, the A Gun Game with No Name EP, a lot of the tracks on that were actually written around the time I wrote Soulfountain 2, so, yeah, but again, I'll talk about that when I get to it, because that is technically... new stuff as well as old stuff. It's the weird album, that one. But yeah, so we got a glorified fan song, Town Lost to Time, probably my favorite track off this album overall, followed up by Why Are We Here, an Induction to Chaos. A lot of the stuff on this I really like, especially the ending track, The Meaning. That got re-recorded on the most recent album, The Journey by Soulfountain. It's also on there as an instrumental, but with a lot more at the beginning. So, yeah. Because I haven't really got much to talk about in terms of production shit for this one, as is with self-title, I am just gonna play a track of my choosing. I think I'm gonna choose Why Are We Here? A song about God, because I needed one of those, apparently. So, yeah, Why Are We Here? Let me get that one up now. Induction to Chaos as well. Like, some of the lyrical themes on this, one of the songs is about, I think Sleep was about, like, what am I gonna do when my mom's gone? And not gone as in, like, oh, if I moved out, like, when she's gone. So, what am I going to do with that? Joyous Day is just about enjoy yourself. It's your life. Live it how you want. And just be happy, you know? Hollow Feeling, I don't really know what that one's about. I'll be honest, in retrospect, that one's just kind of lyrical gabble. Crushed is about how time keeps moving forward. And you don't really have time for anything. But that's just how it is. I saw Bloodshot 2. It's another song about me losing my eyesight and having irritated eyes. Because, again, a year after writing fucking Bloodshot 1, I coincidentally got irritated eyeballs around the time of recording this one. So this was like mid-2022, this one. So it would have literally been a year since I had irritated my eyes the first time. I ended up doing it again. So, yeah. And Induction to Chaos, that's a song about, like, essentially being indoctrinated into a cult. So the cult shit kind of began here, in a way. But not to the extent where, like, now it's like I'm actually into the occult kind of shit. But, hey... we'll find that out if I record anything on the new album about that shit. But yeah, so I'm going to play Why Are We Here? A song about God. And if he's real, why did he put us on this earth? And if he did, is he listening? Can we have another go? Because we kind of fucked up the first time. So yeah, this is Why Are We Here? From Soulfountain. Boss.
1, 2, 3, 4. Why are we here? Why are we here? Did God create life? Is he real? Is he fake? Is this what we debate? So come on, why are we alive tonight?
You put us on this planet just to figure it out. But in the process we have turned it inside out. Can we have another chance if you're even there? God, listen to our call, 'cause we're in this repair. Come on, why are we here? Did God create life? Is he real? Is he fake? Is this what we debate? So come on, why are we alive tonight? When we have something in our hands, we make the choice to burn it all. Is this what the Father wanted? Or are we losing his call? And a place not after death, it's called Planet Earth. Unless the answers come to us, our hearts shall be You put us on this planet just to figure it out. But in the process we have turned it inside out. Can we have another chance if you're even there? God, listen to our call, because we're all burning in hell.
Yeah, I think that's a solid one. It's a solid track. I think vocal deliveries, though, could definitely be improved on that. It's not as raspy, it's more More of a, like a, kind of like a wailing voice kind of thing. Don't know what I was going for with it, but I think that was around the time I was trying to rest my voice a little bit in terms of the raspy shit. To kind of like get a blend of both styles between songs. And I feel like Why Are We Here definitely could have benefited a bit more from a bit more raspier vocals, but yeah. And to kind of bring up Why Are We Here again, that's not the only time you're gonna hear that song. That shit's been re-recorded for the new album. Greetings, my fellow mortal on this rotating sphere. Hello, Prinker. Welcome to the chat. It's nice to see you here. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back. I am nearly at the end for all this musical talk. I've been yapping for 3 hours about the history of my music. For context, so yeah. But we are coming up to now, chat, the last thing I did before Dreams from a Dark Fantasy. And to circle back round to how it began. At this point in time, just over 2 years, I decided that I was going to go back to what truly inspired me to write music as Soulfountain in a way. I went back to Deltarune. To put it bluntly. Yeah, I kind of reverted. So I undid 2 years of progress. Sounded like shit music again, though. Well, to be fair, given how the guitar tone sounds on this EP,
I think that might be a bit more of a correct statement than I'm letting on.
but, yeah. So, Soulfountain Chapter 1. This was written around the time that I had actually kind of made Soulfountain an actual band. Because for the longest time, Soulfountain was just me. Up until, I want to say, the arse end of Soulfountain, the self-title, the first self-title, or Soulfountain 2, I had talked with the, at the time, bassist in my band, basically saying, hey, do you want to be the drummer? Because he could play drums. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. So we jammed a couple tracks from, I think, the self-title and Soulfountain 2, and I was already in the process of recording Soulfountain Chapter 1. So we were jamming some tracks from that as well. Namely, only the first track, which I think will be the only track that I play for this EP tonight. Sorry, I'm just fixing Painter's face. One of the Velcro patches is coming off. My beloved Painter plushie. You hear that, Painter? Stop being a piece of shit. Little googly guy. Little goober. But yeah, so Soulfountain Chapter 1 kinda just existed to circle back to the whole Deltarune headcanon thing in a way, and I feel like this illustrates the whole Deltarune thing a lot better than Fields of Darkness, Freedom, instrumentals, basically anything that I claimed was a part of the Deltarune headcanon could ever even live up to that in terms of concept. This is where I actively sat down and basically said, alright, Deltarune Chapter 1, for real this time. And yeah, so you got songs like Mean Girl, the first track, The Dark World, you have a Rude Buster remix in this thing, Checkmate, Castle of Cards, and then Sealing the Fountain to kind of round off the EP to like say, hey look, this EP's ending, it's like we're sealing a fountain of our own, and all that kind of shit. So yeah, it's very more Deltarune focused. The only thing I can say about this album, I do not like it in retrospect, is the guitar tone. Because in the last album, I'd experimented with trying to go for a new drum sound, so like a blend with like a new snare mixed with the old one that I used pretty much since the beginning, but especially a new kick preset, because in Why Are We Here, the one that we just listened to, the kick was audible, finally, after God knows how many years, how many months. So, yeah. That was one thing I was improving upon, and I think it finally came into full effect on Chapter 1. I completely ditched the kick preset on the, on GarageBand that I was using beforehand. So, yeah. In terms of gear, this was the last thing I ever recorded to use my custom KLA-10 amplifier. So after this EP, that got retired and eventually got moved on, because by then I believe I had bought my Harley Benton HBR20. So a better amplifier for a time, until I put a Celestian in it. Then it was really good. Then I got a Line 6, and now I have my Randall. So yeah, this was definitely like a finale kind of thing for like the old era of Soulfountain, to kind of circle back to Deltarune, like I was just saying, and two, this is the last thing I made before going public as well, so before Dreams from a Dark Fantasy. And I think if the guitar tone was much better than what we're about to hear, this could have been a really solid, like, moving on from not sharing publicly and jumping into the public shit. I used to be highly up to date with the Deltarune episodes as they came out. I just haven't been able to watch the new 2 chapters. That's fair enough, Aprinka. Hey, also, you're streaming this evening? Yeah, I am streaming TYPYRMI. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, if I'm available to. So, yeah. Hello. Welcome. I'm assuming you've just come from Melton's stream, if he's been streaming at all, probably. I don't know. I don't actually think he has been. Let me check his schedule really quickly while I yap about music stuff. Oh, no, he's had today off. Never mind. But yeah, welcome to the stream, TYPYRMI. It's nice to see you here, buddy. But yeah, so Deltarune, Soulfountain Chapter 1, sorry. I'm so used to saying Deltarune and then insert chapter number here. Was meant to be like a grand finale, kind of, for the non-public era of Soulfountain. And it kind of fumbled it, in terms of how it sounds. But yeah, so I stream whenever, but I fuck up mine since I had to end early and wrap up some work. My condolences. My condolences on that, Chief. Big F right there. So yeah, in terms of pedals and shit for this EP, sorry, I think it was the same as the last 5 at this. Yeah, I think it was 5, because I did 5 albums. Icy Hell to the Soulfountain 2, yeah. And I think it was just the EQ that I was messing about with more so than anything, because I was still using my UM300, my Ultra Metal distortion. I'm not this ass. It's alright, bro, don't worry. We all have our days. But I think it was literally just the Behringer EQs, because I was using 2 of them by now, most definitely, because the lead guitarist had bought one of the Behringer just the EQ 700s, and I was like, I don't like how this is, do you want it? And he just gave me it. So I had 2 EQs to work with on my pedal board, And yeah, it definitely comes into effect here because oh god, I'm dreading this, but I will play what I consider my favorite track from this album at 6 minutes 15 seconds. This is Mean Girl. And I do believe a fun little fact about this song before I get into it, this was the only track that I recorded that didn't have a guitar solo. This was the first track that I ever did that didn't have a solo in it. And it was more so vocally and rhythm driven, but how well that rhythm sounds, you're about to find out. I will apologize in advance.
It makes me sick. I'll let you into a secret, something you ought to know. The very sounds of you, it bothers me to the bone. I swear to God, you keep this up, you never see a home. Run down on my favorite core, you see, I'm a mean old gal. Tempt me with a thread or two, and I'll bite your face off, pal. Yeah, I'm a mean girl. Horrid my middle name. Terrorized just for shits and giggles. I ruin people's day. I'll let you into a secret, something that hurts me wrong. Heed my advice on this one thing, you little freak. Quiet people piss me off. Down in my favorite core, you see, I'm a mean old gal. Tempt me with a thread or two, and I'll bite your face off, pal. Do I care what you say? No chance, pal, not this scale.
So yeah. You can tell what I mean by the guitar tone sounds terrible. It just sounds like somebody scratching nails on a chalkboard. That's how bad that tone is. And again, I think structure-wise, the songs on Chapter 1, because it's that Chapter 1 being the last thing I recorded before Dark Fantasy was properly when I started figuring out like what worked and what didn't for me. It's just part of the training arc. I'm back. Welcome back, Transorbital. It's nice to see you back. But yeah, so that whole thing with the guitar tone, because I was starting to come into my own with how I sounded with my stuff and how I was structuring songs and shit. If the tone was much better and not as scratchy, that probably could have been like worthy of public release. I probably would have started with that, granted ditching like the Rude Buster cover and the last track, Sealing the Fountain, having a lot of Deltarune stuff motif wise. Hell, even having Don't Forget at the end, I've just noticed that it says Don't Forget and Rude Buster written by Toby Fox on the bottom right of the cover. I feel like that could have genuinely been where I started, had I gotten a decent sound. One thing that I was going to mention throughout the past couple of albums, but I am bringing it up now because I kept forgetting, was the bass. Because I don't have a bass guitar anymore, I haven't had it since Dark Fantasy, which we'll be getting into in another stream. Probably the stream on Saturday will be a part 2 to this, technically speaking, so this is like one regarding all my old stuff. The next stream will be regarding the more recent shit from Dark Fantasy onward. Because I used an actual bass guitar for everything Icy Hell onwards, I forgot how actually good it sounded. So I think it genuinely might be time for me to buy a bass guitar again. If I can get the chord one that I used to have, like just the same model, I'll get that, because I remember really liking that. It was 24 frets, I do believe, as well. So, yeah. It's just part of the training arc. I'm back. Welcome back, like I said. Also, I don't know what Melton said, but it wasn't B that said you were the bin. I didn't have a stroke reading that at all, shush. And, Oddteeth, hell yeah. We love a bit of law regarding stuff with me, I imagine. I don't know. But yeah, so that is, chat, the history of classic Soulfountain. I say it like it's a fucking Sonic character. But yeah, that's Old Fountain. That's a good majority of the old stuff covered today in terms of like just generally how it sounds, what stuff I had, what I was doing around the time, mostly in terms of actually recording shit, and yeah, and some of the stuff that influenced me to write some songs. So next stream, because I'm gonna be real, my throat still hurts and I've been yawning like mad. I want to get to bed as soon as I can now, so I'm not really going to be able to yap much about anything post chapter 1, but again, we'll save that for next stream. Next stream will be Saturday. I should be home alone for it this time. I know I said I was going to be today, but my mum's ill, so she didn't go into work today, understandably so. Next stream, we'll be doing more of this shit, talking about music stuff from Dark Fantasy onwards. So it shouldn't be as long as this stream. It should be quite short by comparison, because we're only 5 albums in with I think the modern newer Soulfountain shit. So absolute cinema, hell yeah. I'm sorry if I read that way, by the way. So thanks to all that stuck around. Thanks to all of those that were in the chat. So TYPYRMI, Transorbital as usual, Aprinka, nice to see you as well, Melton for being in the chat, Clown Blocks, Something Back, all my usuals, and Guizito as well. Thank you all for joining, as per the norm. I'm surprised Zito didn't show up to say listen to the Journey by Soulfountain. So yeah. Before I go, I'm going to grab the Old Fountain link once again and pop that in the chat if you guys want to check any of this shit out. I don't know why you would, because it all sounds awful, barring like a couple of albums. I'm gonna pin it as well, just in case. And I will be putting it in the description right now. Music channels, so let me preface one of them. Soulfountain. And then Old Fountain. There we go. So yeah, that's in the chat and in the description. Should you ever come back to the stream and be like, I need a good way to get to these tracks. Well, how do I do? Oh yeah, it's in the description. So yeah, that's down there. We also have a Discord. That's in the description as well. So join that if you want updates on what I'm streaming, when I'm streaming, all that good shit. You know the drill by now, I imagine. And my webcomic's down there as well, so should you want to read that, just check out some of the panels and stuff that I've done recently, because I actually got those panels with me, Beloved Arias, and Michael done the other day. So there are some new panels up if you want to check those out. And overall, again, thank you all for joining. I'll see you all on Saturday. I'm gonna go bed now, get some rest, and yeah, we will cover the new stuff on Saturday. But until then, have a good night, chat.
Bye.